My parents had me declared legally dead in order to drain my bank account and steal all my money. I am a 48-year-old male, and my mom and dad are 80 and 78. My parents made the first polite request for reconciliation after too much stuff happened, including them declaring me legally dead. I'm not used to them accepting my choices or showing respect, and unsure how to deal with them or if I should talk to them at all. This story began over 30 years ago in Germany. I had just turned 16 and was accused of stealing a neighbor's car and wrecking another neighbor's fence with it, while running away from the police. I was drunk when the police picked me up, which is legal in Germany. I proclaimed my innocence, but nobody believed me. I was convicted and sentenced to 500 hours of community service because I was unrepentant. My parents used it as a tool to take away my time with my friends. They got the judge to agree that I had to work Friday and Saturday evenings at the THW, an organization that will provide disaster relief and sometimes soup kitchens. I also lost my license for mopeds and could not get a driver's license till 20. In addition, when I finally wanted to get my license, I would have to pass a psychological test. Also, the money I had saved for a car, around 10,000 Deutsche Marks, was used to pay for the damages. Sadly, it worked. My friends soon lost interest in me because I was not available to party during the weekend. Also, we were very vehicle-oriented, and I was destined to be a pedestrian for 4 years. An uncle of mine led the local THW and conveniently lost my timesheets for work done at the THW, which forced me to work there for 14 months. In total, I did a bit more than 900 hours. The time there did teach me quite a lot, and it was interesting work, which I would probably have liked if I was not forced to do it. My parents told me that they were doing it for my own good, to save me from my friends, and that they asked my uncle to keep me there longer so that I would be forced to learn to take responsibility for my actions. That time ended, as all things do. I left, unrepentant and furious with them for essentially doubling my sentence. I was in great shape, did good in school as I lost my friends, and had no interest in acquiring new ones after seeing how fickle they were. Focusing on academics was an outlet that was not forced on me by others, and I enjoyed it. Then, I found out who had actually crashed the car. I told the police, my parents, and tried to get my sentence repealed. I tried a retrial proceedings and failed because my sentence was already served. The guy who actually did the deed was sentenced to only 100 hours of community service. At his trial, it came out that several people had known it was him, including my parents, who made him pay for the damages almost a year ago. They had put the money in a bank account, which they told me I would get once I had finished my education, school and university or apprenticeship. They also added 15,000 marks to the savings account for the hours I'd put in with the THW, which was a generous wage for a teenager. Still, I was furious with them because I would still have to wait till 20 to get a driver's license. If they had told me sooner, I could have gotten the sentence repealed. Also, they might give me $25,000 in about 5 years, but for now they'd essentially stolen my savings, and they were not giving it back while they thought I was too immature to make my own choices. After a huge fight, I took my tent and camped out in the woods, still going to school but not coming back home. After a week, they called the cops on me, which took the tent and forced me to go home. I was 17. Once the police left, so did I. I went to school every day. I slept wherever I could, mostly barns and in the woods if weather was good, as I now had no tent. On occasion, the police found me. My parents called them every day for help. If caught, I would be forced to go home. They locked me in my room, but I simply waited for school and disappeared after school was out. Finally, I turned 18. Now the police could not force me to go home. I only had half a year left to finish school, so I continued like this. I had no friends because I smelled funny, and no interest in getting any friends because I was hurt and was not going to let anybody close to hurt me again. Still, I managed to finish school with good grades. After school, I used the mandatory military service to disappear. I volunteered for service abroad, which meant Eastern Europe at the time. After 2 years, I was done, and had a nice nest egg. During my time in the military, I had no close friends, but at least I was no longer a pariah. I enrolled in a university and studied chemistry. I found 3 good friends and met my first girlfriend, to whom I am now married. I was 29 and working on my doctorate when my parents managed to find me. Occasionally, they convinced the police to look for me as a missing case. The police usually found me. I told them that I was fine but wanted no contact with my parents, and that was it. The police told them that I was fine, and that they can't tell them where I was, and that they should please stop involving the police. Then my parents had a genius idea. They filed paperwork that I had died in an accident in Italy. They were my next of kin, so the police gave them my address. Meanwhile, my bank account was frozen. The university told me that I was no longer allowed to work on my doctorate while being dead, and lots of other things stopped working for me. 2 days into this disaster, and my parents are in front of my flat and demand to talk to me, telling me that I forced them to take this step. They force their way inside and tell me they will stay until I am willing to talk to them and mend bridges. I told them if they insist, they can have the flat. I took my laptop, a few mementos, important documents, and a bag full of clothes. I left the keys and walked out. It took me a few months to convince the bureaucracy that tales of my death were widely exaggerated. My landlord was very understanding and gave me everything that was left in my flat after my parents understood that I would not be coming back. They mostly took the photos I had left in the flat. They left a letter which I burned. I was really pissed because being dead caused so many troubles. I was afraid that they would find me again, so I took a job in another city as soon as I had finished my doctorate. That was around 15 years ago. They have found me again. This time, they sent a relative who told me that they were sorry and that they did not want to explode when they found me and that they did not want to force me to abandon my flat back then, but their emotions got the better of them. They would respect it if I still wanted no contact, but they would love to have me and my wife for dinner. Honestly, I am not sure what to do. What should I do? Some random info that did not fit in. I never managed to get my driver's license. I failed the psychological evaluation because I was not willing to confront my drinking problem. I would have to show remorse for a drunk driving incident I did not commit, so I gave up on that. I could probably get it now without the test, but I got used to not having a driver's license and no longer want one. I never got the money from my parents, but I don't need it. They probably still have it with interest in the account. They are self-righteous pricks, but they did it all in an attempt to bring me on the correct way. I'm very certain that if I had contacted them and told them I'm done with university and have a job, please wire the money to that account, they would have done it. For me, no contact with them was more important at the time. As someone who has also had a difficult relationship with their parents, I can totally relate to this story. It sounds like your parents really didn't have your best interests at heart and were more concerned with controlling your life than actually helping you. Declaring you legally dead is a pretty extreme move and shows how little they cared about you at the time. I also can't believe they would wait until you were 20 to give you access to your own savings. That's just ridiculous. And then to find out they had known who actually crashed the car all along and didn't tell you? That's just messed up. But at the same time, I can see why you might be hesitant to reconnect with them now. It's not easy to forgive and forget when it comes to parents, especially when they've hurt you so badly. It's understandable that you're unsure about how to deal with them and if you should even talk to them at all. Overall, I think this story is a bit of both fake and real. There are definitely some elements that seem exaggerated, but at the same time, I believe there's truth to it. It's a tough situation, and I hope you're able to find some resolution and peace. Today, I fricked up by ignoring a headache and getting an entire ER to be locked down. Well, not actually today, but more like 7 years ago. So the day started pretty normal. I had a day off from work and a full schedule on how to get the best of it. The plan was to do all the boring stuff that I'd take care of right in the morning, seeing my girlfriend for a bit after that, and then in the evening to go to my first ever live soccer game with friends. I'm not a soccer fan, but I've never been to a big event like that and was super excited about it. So I started the day by going to dentist in the morning. I had a few broken teeth from hitting myself by mistake with a piece of iron, but that's a story for another day. Right after the dentist, I noticed my head started to hurt. I linked it to the dentist visit and didn't think much about it. But as the day passed, the pain got stronger and stronger. And by the time I saw my girlfriend, I was in extreme pain, but didn't want to miss the event that I was so excited about, and thought my friends will see a headache as a lame excuse for bailing. So I took a shower. I remember feeling the water hitting my head, and it felt like knives dropping on my head. Drank like 5 cups of coffee and took more painkillers than I can remember and headed out. By the time we got to the game, the pain was intolerable. I walked from the car to the stadium, and my vision was blurry, and every sound felt like someone is pushing a screwdriver through my ear. When we got to the entrance, I told them I'm in too much pain and got a rest in the car and they should head in. From here, my memory is kind of fuzzy. One of them called me just as the game began to see if I'm going to join them. I don't remember how the call went, but I probably sounded horrible because, to my luck, he decided to leave everything and take me to the hospital ASAP. When we arrived at the hospital, I was already passing out minutes at a time and suffered a lot when I was awake. But for some reason, the doctor at the ER decided to give me ibuprofen and wait. The friend who took me there said something like, "I've known him for a long time, and if he's acting this way, ibuprofen won't do anything to him." He meant that my tolerance for pain is high, and I won't react that way for something ibuprofen could fix. But the doctor's interpretation for that was completely different, seeing 2 dudes in the middle of the night, obviously from a poor neighborhood, so it's possibly drugs. So the doctor wanted a urine test to check for drugs, and by that time I couldn't control my body or barely move, let alone pee on command. The doctor's ego was hurt from me refusing to give a urine test. Mind you, I was so out at this point that all I'm writing from here is based on what my friend and mom, got there when she heard, told me. So the night passed. Lots of people coming and going from the ER. Doctors, nurses, cleaning crews, patients. And the doctor still refuses to check on me until I give a urine test. Then my mom suggested they should just insert a catheter to do the test. And they did. And for the doctor's surprise, I was clean. That's when they started running tests on me like crazy and got to the conclusion it was meningitis. Well, apparently, there are two prime reasons for meningitis viruses or bacteria. And because I didn't show any head trauma, there was no reason to suspect bacteria. The bacteria needs a way to get inside your head. And because I worked as a contract worker at the border, there was every reason to suspect a wild virus. So the decision was made, and the ER went into lockdown. Nobody could go in or out. They located everyone that was in the ER at the same time as me and already left to let them know they cannot leave their homes or come in contact with anyone. And as I said, the doctor refused to check on me for a lot of time, so many people already passed through the ER. Remember, this was pre-COVID. Nobody was in a situation like this before. People were freaking out. Nurses bursted into tears, fighting on who will take blood from me or give me an IV. Full terror mode was in the ER when patients who wanted to get out were fighting with doctors and security. It took a few hours for the test results to come back and free everyone. I woke up like 2 days after, could barely move from pain, but still couldn't stop laughing my ass off as I heard this. I just realized I didn't explain how it was bacteria after all. Well, I had a brain surgery done on me like 5 years before that. The surgery was done completely through the nose, and apparently the doctors who did the surgery did an amazing job, but somehow didn't close the space between the inside of my nose to my brain, leaving it exposed to bacteria. Wow, that's terrifying. I can't believe it took 5 years for you to end up in the hospital with a hole in your sinuses like that. But you know what's more terrifying? The video on the left, where a Karen assaults deaf man for ignoring her.